Hey everyone, welcome to this weekend Sidereal Astrology forecast for the weekend of April 24th to the 26th of 2020. Alright, so still very much a time of new beginnings. We just had that new moon last Thursday. So this weekend, still a good time of seeing what new is arising in our life. It might very much have to do with where we can take initiative with things with Aries and maybe mix some things up with Uranus. Now on Friday, the moon will be shifting into Taurus for the whole weekend. So the theme this weekend could be really good for resourcefulness, connecting to nature, the comforts of life, and our inner strength and self-reliance. Now this weekend we have Mercury squaring up to Pluto and Jupiter, so maybe a bit of a deep mind or deep communications that can be utilized in constructive ways. Also maybe seeing the bigger picture, which can also be great for grounding some higher perspectives on things. We do have Pluto going retrograde, which slowly into next week we could notice a bit of a pause with some of the deeper elements of life, maybe starting to rethink some of those deeper things. And on Sunday, the sun goes over Uranus, so maybe something new with that exciting, different, unique kind of energy. All right, so take a look at all of this here in more detail on our return. All right, so here is the sky for this weekend. We're going to look at this for Friday with the moon shifting into Taurus, then Saturday with the moon well set in Taurus, as well as Sunday as well. Now we are using the actual size of the constellations on this channel called True Sidereal Astrology. It's the equivalent of looking up at the night sky and seeing exactly where the planets are placed. This is different from mainstream astrology, so if you are new to this, and especially if you notice some of the signs are different, like for example, this new moon was actually in Aries, but if you're expecting it to be in Taurus, definitely check out that link down below for more information. All right, so let's take a look here at the moon's placement, starting first with Friday. The moon will be shifting out of that Aries new moon and into Taurus, but still definitely a time of new beginnings. It is the lowest energy phase of the cycle as we slowly build some momentum this lunar month. Still a good time of listening to what new is arising. It could be around matters of taking initiative in our life, maybe cultivating more of our needs and desires, our independence. Things like this is what this next lunar cycle will likely be about, especially with the sun who's now well set in Aries going into next week. So as we do shift into Friday, the first part's still good for that initiative, particularly as the moon will be in Aries. But as the day unfolds, and especially for the whole weekend, really good to start to get into the grounded or resourceful side of ourselves. So themes likely around cultivating our inner and outer resources. Inner resources can be strength, self-reliance, inner self-value, and then externally connecting to things like nature or comforts or relaxing things. It's been great to enjoy these things lately with Venus in Taurus, but we could notice more of a theme with that here this weekend. At least this is a really good way of cultivating this phase of the cycle, is how can we initiate things, but to do so, maybe cultivate some of our inner and outer resources. All right, so we do have some aspects here this weekend. As we do get into Saturday, Mercury will start to square up to deep Pluto. Mercury is the planet of our minds and communication, so it could be a good transformative time for using our minds towards deeper things and maybe communicating deeper things as well. So usually with the square, it can be a bit like we may want to go to extremes. There might be a bit of that intense energy or really wanting the truth. And so it is good to practice non-attachment anytime we do have aspects with Pluto, as that then will release that control, release that deep desire, which then it does transform in much healthier ways. So it can be a very constructive weekend for non-attachment to truth, to the depth of things, but at the same time to maybe use our minds in intentional ways of uncovering hidden things, whether it's research, healing, deep diving. Maybe it's about ourselves, psychology, personal growth and development. In our relationships, maybe having intimate or closer communications, things like this. Utilizing our mind and communications in healthfully constructive, deep ways is a great way of working with this, particularly late Friday going into Saturday for most of us. Now, Pluto will be going station retrograde here this weekend for his roughly 6-month retrograde. And so this can sometimes subtly, not necessarily this weekend, but as we get into next week, maybe notice that there is a bit of a pause with some of the deeper stuff that's either been going on personally or collectively in our life. It's a good time of starting to rethink, rework things in regards to the depths, again, truth, these deeper matters. And in this way, we'll be likely learning a lot about Pluto type of things over the next 6 months, life and death, transformation, our deep psychology, our deep needs, things like this. Really good to sort of do a reworking or rethinking process with. But do give it time, of course, because Pluto is a very slow moving planet and it does take time for that retrograde to set in motion. Now, as we do start to get into Sunday, again, with that moon in resourceful Taurus, we will then have Mercury squaring up to Jupiter late Saturday into Sunday. And so again, Mercury, the planet of our minds and communication, in a square with expansive Jupiter. And usually this comes across as quite benefic, but it is good to be mindful of any overexpansion. So great to see the bigger picture. What are our potentials? What is the meaning of life? Philosophy, spirituality, these more abstract things will likely start to come into the mix. But again, how can we ground it practically? With Mercury, it is about taking those abstract ideas and actually putting it to use, something practical, or communicating it, making it tangible, right? Great way of working with that square. But the most important thing as we do get into Sunday will be the sun going over Uranus. This was part of the new moon. And in this context, maybe a new beginning with our more free-spirited true self that does maybe want to take action and initiate things in Aries. So Sunday into next week, maybe seeing if there is something that we do want to mix up in our life. We could be viewing life through a more progressive lens, what can be changed, disrupted, challenged the status quo with, and in this way starting to get into more of that freer side of ourselves. So great to focus on these types of things. Also, Uranus does rule things like technology, future visions. Sometimes we can get visions and that kind of future-oriented energy with this. So really good to see what new might be arising, again, from the new moon, but maybe also going into next week in regards to that freer, truer side of ourselves that does want to healthfully disrupt things in our life. All right, everyone, so that is the weekend in a nutshell. Most important thing is this moon in Taurus, early phase of the cycle. Still good for setting intentions for the bigger picture of the lunar month of how we can take initiative. But this weekend, really good for cultivating our inner and outer resources to do so. A deep mind, possibly Friday, Saturday, which can be channeled constructively. A bit of a pause going into next week with the deeper dimensions. An open mind, potentially, with Mercury square Jupiter, that can also be constructive. And a new beginning with that free-spirited, eccentric, and unique side of ourself with Sun conjunct Uranus. All right, so everyone have a fantastic weekend. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to click that like button if you haven't yet. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe as well for more daily videos. And I'll see you all on Monday for the next daily forecast. Take care.